Michelle Prince, founder and CEO of Performance Publishing Group, making a difference one story at a time. We'll be shining the light on successful founders, entrepreneurs, business owners, and leaders that are getting results and making a difference. We'll talk about how they built their businesses, are creating movements, and leveraging the power of authority in their own lives. Be sure to stick around to the end of the show, and we'll reveal how you can be our next guest. Let's get started. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Power of Authority Spotlight, where we shine the light on successful entrepreneurs, business owners, leaders, and founders who are doing incredible things. They're building businesses, but they're doing it with a purpose, and they're making a difference in the world. And I'm excited for you to meet our guest today because he's doing this in huge, huge ways. But first, this episode is brought to you by Performance Publishing. Performance Publishing is a done-for-you publishing solution for people that are trying to get their stories out of their head onto paper. There is no greater impact that you can make into the world other than sharing your story. So grab a free strategy call at performancepublishinggroup.com. That's performancepublishinggroup.com, and get that story written. All right, let me introduce you to Kevin Thompson. I just met Kevin, and I have to say, I already like him. Personality-wise, he seems to have the right things in mind about relationships and connecting. And after selling 16.1 million of his own products and services solely through strategic partnerships, Kevin Thompson intimately understands the value of relationships. As host of the $1 Million Relationships podcast and founder of the Impact and Legacy Collective, he creates positive change on a global scale by facilitating relationships that impact millions of people. In his role as the conduit of trust for those he serves, Kevin cuts through the red tape, quickly opens doors that are closed to others, eliminates rejection, and guarantees a red carpet reception. Welcome to the show, Kevin.
I'm just excited to be here, Michelle, and I'm looking forward to having a really awesome conversation today.
Well, I am too. I mean, our good friend, Jeremy Weiss, introduced us, connected us. And a big shout out to him. He does an amazing job with his business with Rise 25. But we were talking before the show that any connection made through Jeremy is usually, we're both excited about that, right? Because he's also an authentic person who, just tries to bring good people together. So already we have that established. But I love your message of it's about relationships. And I'm a big believer in that business is all about relationships. All of life is about relationships, but you've built an entire business around relationships. So tell us more about what that's all about.
Sure. Well, Jeremy, you mentioned Jeremy, what a perfect testament to the power of relationships, because both you and I have this amazing relationship with Jeremy. And so when Jeremy sent a message to both of us saying, hey, you guys should really connect and all that. Like we're both wide open to it. And then now here we get on this Zoom call today to do this interview. And it's like we've been friends for years because of our mutual respect for Jeremy.
Yes.
And,
totally agree.
And like we both talked about is that, anybody that Jeremy would send our way, we just know they're our kind of peeps. They're somebody we would want to get to know and hang out and spend time with.
Totally.
And nothing beats that. And as entrepreneurs, I have long believed that relationships are the most valuable asset we possess. Everything else stems from that. Mm-hmm. And you talked about my previous company, the publishing company, where I did almost 600 strategic partnerships over a 12-year period. And a lot of these people, Jeremy being one of them, helped me get my message out into the marketplace. And I was so grateful to every one of those partners and the role that they had, because if it weren't for them, I wouldn't be able to have done my thing nearly as effectively without their help. Mm-hmm. And so I really learned the power of relationships over that 12-year period of running that company. And I along the way, what I figured out is I was just trying to figure out how I can be of service to them. Mm-hmm. And so we'd have these conversations about whatever they were working on, whatever was exciting them in that moment, whatever they were working on, their big project or a problem they were dealing with, an opportunity they were trying to take advantage of. And like, I just always would default to, oh, who do I know that might be able to help them? And so I just started making these connections for people, and it just happened organically.
Yeah.
And the first big connection that I made was for these two guys, Brian and Perry, Brian Kurtz and Perry Marshall.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, this would have been like 12 years ago.
Yeah.
At the time, Brian was working for Boardroom Reports, Marty Edelstein's company. They're a big direct mail company. And they were trying to figure out the Google AdWords platform. And he was telling me, he's like, man, Kev, we don't have a clue what we're doing with this thing. We're pulling our hair out. And I'm like, well, you guys should talk with Perry and his team. That's their thing. That's what they do. And he's like, well, I know of Perry. I said, I'll get you guys connected.
Wow.
And so I sent an email. I connected those two guys. Perry's team did help Boardroom with the Google AdWords platform. But beyond that, Brian and Perry became amazing friends. And about a year later, they're hosting this big in-person event back in Washington, D.C. It was called the Titans of Direct Response. And I believe it was like a 2 or 3 day event. And on the opening morning of that event, I'm getting messages from about 3 or 4 of my friends who were in attendance there. One of them is kind of interesting. One of them was Paul Bingham. Paul Bingham has been a longtime friend of mine. I was actually just messaging Paul this morning.
Oh, wow.
But Paul was in the audience, and he sends me a message and is like, hey, I'm here at Brian and Perry's event. It's opening day. They're on stage right now talking about you, Kev, in a really good light, that you're the one who connected them, that none of this would have even happened if it weren't for you, and that how great of friends they've become. And now, and like they have gone on since then to do so many amazing things together. But it was that experience that got me thinking, wouldn't it be cool if I had a business where I got to do that all the time? And it took some time for the seed to germinate and grow. But like, here it is now 12 years later, and that's what I get to do all the time.
That is so incredible. You know, it's interesting. You and I started our businesses around the same time. Actually, I'm about 13 years in, but in 2009. And so you even mentioning Perry and the event I'm very familiar with. So that was when I was just getting started myself. But something you said, though, it sounds like to me, you know, you're a natural born connector. And what I love about that story is you didn't set out to connect people so that you could get something out of it, right? You were just helping. I started my career, and my mentor, and I still admire, I'm very much involved with the organization still, even though he's long gone, is Zig Ziglar. And he would, one of his more famous quotes was, you can have everything in life you want if you just help enough other people get what they want. And that's what a connector is. It's like, you're not giving to get, and you're not helping to be, you're not serving to be served. You're just doing it because it's kind of who you are. And I think some people, it comes more natural than others. It sounds like that's just kind of your natural, you know, in your DNA. But I just love how you've been able to transition that into an actual business, which
well, and I would love to say that just happened so easily, but that would be a complete lie, Michelle.
Well, good. Then people listening will appreciate you, because we're all struggling to some degree, right?
I had so much head trash that I had to remove with the help of people like Brian and Perry, you know, because you're right, you know, like it was the joy of seeing those guys do what they do. That's what feeds me, you know, and that's what inspires me. And quite honestly, you know, I mean, even when I thought, like, wouldn't it be cool? Then my next thought was, well, yeah, but you don't know anybody doing anything like that. And you know, all these other, I mean, I was good friends with Joe Polish. I've been good friends with Joe Polish since 1997. And Joe is an amazing connector. So then I start comparing, well, Joe's way better at this than you. You know, who do you think you are trying to do this? And, you know, all this stuff. And I would even, you know, I even had conversations with Perry and Brian saying, you know, man, I would really like to have a business where this is what I do, but how do I do that? And And I really struggled with that for a long time. And in fact, it wasn't until 12 years ago, the seed was planted. It didn't even start to germinate until 2017. So, that was 6 years ago. So there was a 6 year, and granted, I still had the other business, so it was okay. But I ain't gonna lie, I started getting antsy in the other business because I felt there was this other thing that I wanted to be doing, and I wasn't doing it. So there was some frustration there.
Can you walk us through, because I know there's a lot of people listening that they're mostly business owners or people that are aspiring to grow a business, and frankly, I've been there too, and it does seem very simple and it just happened overnight. But walk us through kind of that transition. Like, what were you doing, and you saying that it germinated for a while? I so appreciate that, because I think that happens with most of us. But then what was the catalyst to make it actually happen in 2017? So can you walk us through that?
Absolutely. So, I had a publishing company, and we were selling, I sold $16.1 million worth of this course that I had created over a 12-year period. And so, and I did mostly strategic partnerships, partnering with other entrepreneurs to help me get my message into the marketplace. And, that was very rewarding doing that. Mm-hmm. But I will tell you that once this seed got planted 12 years ago, I remember Perry inviting me to this little intimate event that he held in Chicago. I don't remember when it was. It was probably maybe 7-8 years ago. Okay. And this guy, Melvin Pillay, was there with them.
I know Melvin.
You know Melvin? Oh,
I do.
Melvin is such an amazing guy. And,
such a small world.
And I got Perry invited me to that because he's like, Kevin, I want you to come to this because you're going to get some clarity. And it was a one-day thing. It was right before I was coming back there anyways for strategic coach. Yeah. And I'm like, I'll just fly in 3 days early and I'll come to this thing with you, Perry. And I did. And Melvin confirmed. He's like, Kevin, he's like, you are on the right track. This is what you are supposed to be doing. And so I kept getting confirmation, but yet the answers weren't coming quite yet, And so it felt good to be there and have these people around, Melvin and Perry and Brian and lots of other people who knew me were like, yeah, Kev, this is your thing. Oh. And it wasn't until April of 2017, I was talking with a good friend of mine. And he just makes this casual comment. He's like, Kevin, he's like, all these amazing entrepreneurs. Why have you never held an in-person event get-together just for the purpose of getting us all together and letting us meet each other? And I'm like, I don't know. I guess I've just never thought of that. And he's like, well, Kevin, I'm going to challenge you to give that some thought because I think that would be really valuable. And if you did something like that, I would totally be there. And I'm like, wait a minute. I said, so you're telling me, because he lived in Florida, I live in Washington State.
Okay.
I'm like, so are you telling me, let's just say I held this thing and I did it right here at my home. I said, are you telling me that you would invest your time and dollars to come all the way across the country to come to my home and attend? He said, Kevin, he said, you tell me when and I will be there. And I was like, holy cow. And so that day, I remember sitting at dinner with my family, and that night I was telling my wife about this because I'm thinking, Michelle, this in my mind was like throwing a party for a bunch of my amazing friends.
Right.
I was telling my wife, and I'm like, honey, we could do this right here at our home. We could do this right here. My wife's she's a party. She loves hosting people. And so she's like, oh, I would help you plan it and this and that. And so she was getting all excited. And next morning I was up at 5 a.m. and I was sitting right here at my computer going through all my email contacts, my Facebook friends, and I just start making the list of well, who would you want to invite? And so I had about 100 people, and I started looking at them. I'm like, okay. I was like, so what is it? What is it about these people? Why these people? Why are they the ones that just, I want to invite them? Mm-hmm. And what I realized is every single one of them, they were already well-established entrepreneurs, and they were in this second stage of their business, meaning that they had already got past the point of their focus being on creating cash flow. They were
Right.
already beyond that. Now they were focused on impact, impact, legacy, purpose, what
Yes.
have you. That was what inspired them. And they had a track record of delivering results for their clients. They were also some of the most giving, generous, lead with a helping hand people that I knew.
Mm.
And so I just started reaching out to people. And the first guy that I spoke with was a friend of mine, Travis Sago. And I had already had an appointment scheduled with him for that morning. And so I just start running this by him with very little clarity, Michelle. I mean, this wasn't even 24 hours into this yet, but I just start sharing. I said, this is what I want to do, Travis. And I was talking with Lisa. We're going to host it right here at my home and do it sometime later this year. And he's like, well, Kevin, he's like, are you open to some insight? And I'm like, absolutely. And he's like, well, I'm going to tell you right now. He's like, he lives in Russellville, Arkansas. He's like, I'm an hour away from my airport on my end. He's like, you're an hour away from your airport on your end. So it's an all-day thing for me to get to you. He's like, and if you're talking 2.5, 3 days, then another travel day home. He's like, I'm talking 5 days. Mm-hmm. And he's like, I'm not a big fan of travel. I don't like leaving my wife. But he's like, if you do this, I would totally come to that thing. He's like, you just say when and I will be there. And I'm just like, holy cow. And over the next 3 days, I spoke with 5 more people, 6 in total. All 6 of them said essentially the same thing. And Michelle, for one, I can't remember the last time I was 6 for 6 on anything. But after this 6 years of germinating and even frustration of like, how, when I let go of the how and just started having conversations and showing up with the intention to serve, it just unfolded organically.
I love that.
And
that's an important message right there. I just want to pause for a second because I know so many entrepreneurs, including myself for many years, that struggle, the striving and, just going and going and going and, chasing after the wind sometimes. And you can't see, you don't know exactly where you're going, but you're going fast. And sometimes it's just to pause, and that is the answer a lot of times. Right. And I love that was one of the big moments. So continue.
Well, I'll tell you, I look at, that first event. So the very first event that I held right here on the other side of this wall in my living room, 15 entrepreneurs flew in for that event. That was in August of 2017. So 6 years ago this month.
Yeah.
And we did another one the following month in September. 15 more entrepreneurs flew in for that one. And I'm not going to lie, there was a little bit of like, I don't know how to just, I was like, holy cow, look who's sitting in my living room. And I'm like, I just want this to be such a valuable experience for them. And so, I just kind of opened it by, I was like, you know what? I want you to know, I want each of you to know who else is here right now, because every single one of you are like well-established entrepreneurs who are like extremely like just world-class at what you do. You've got a track record of delivering results for your clients. And on the other side of the coin, you are some of the most giving and generous people I know. And so what my vision is for this over the next 2.5 days is that you're going to go away from here with exactly what you need from this experience. And the only way that we can make sure that happens is you've got to let us know where you are right here, right now, and what you need. And that's not always easy. That's not always easy to do. Sometimes it's scary to speak openly, but what I will promise you is, for one, whatever is shared here stays here. And I will also promise you that you won't get an ounce of judgment from anybody here. And in fact, you're going to be met with nothing but open arms from like-minded people who, if we could help you, We would want nothing more than that. That would make us feel so amazing to have a hand in helping you.
Wow.
And we want to be on the receiving end of that too. And I want to challenge every one of you to just open yourself up to that. Spread your wings. Flex your receiving muscle a little bit as well, because we already know you're all givers, and we could all use to receive a little bit more too, and be open to that.
Right.
And
That's
so
sometimes harder.
It is absolutely. I know what that feels like.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I will give all day long, but I may not be the best receiver, and I'm working on that. But
yeah.
So was that the beginning of the Impact and Legacy Collective? Those two sessions?
Yeah, it wasn't all rainbows and unicorns.
Okay.
In fact, the very first thing I offered was at that event, and it just flowed, Michelle. It just flowed, and at the end of that event, I just simply said, "Hey, if you had an amazing experience here, and you would like to have somebody like me in your corner, just facilitating a lot more of this in your life, I would be absolutely honored to have that conversation with you. I will let you know that what I would like in return is I would like $25,000 for a year-long engagement with you. And if that is something that is of interest to you, I'd be more than happy to talk with you, and we can make a plan to have that conversation." Travis Sago was like, "Kev, I don't need to talk, man. I'm in." and so 6 people from that event said yes to that.
Wow.
6 more people in September said yes to that. And I had some figuring out to do. I had some growth that I had to do on my part in order to serve those entrepreneurs effectively. I had some head trash that I had to take out and work through, And,
I love that you brought that up, because I think if we're all real and honest, as any entrepreneur, if you don't have head trash, something might be wrong. Like, I feel like we're all but we're trying so hard to, go after what we, in many cases believe is our calling or our mission or our purpose. But yeah, we can get stuck in our head and like, well, who do I think I am? For me, I share this story a lot, but when having worked for Zig Ziglar early on, right out of college, and then that was a huge part of my whole career, there were moments when I was like, yeah, but when I was writing my first book, actually, and I said, who do I think I am? I'm no Zig Ziglar. Who wants to read my book? And it took some time, but eventually it became, you know what? I'm not. You're right. But my story, although much of what I learned was from him, somebody who's a mom, somebody who's a woman, a business owner may listen to my story that wouldn't listen to his, or hear it in the same way. And so that's just what kind of opened up my whole, no, I have a story and I want to share it, because if my story can make an impact on one person, it's worth it. And that's what I encourage people to do today. But we all have that head trash. So I just love that you were honest about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, walk me through then today. What is your business today? And are you looking for partners and people to work with, whether it be through the collective, the podcast, but tell us more of what are you doing present day to help these entrepreneurs?
Sure. So I facilitate relationships that impact millions of people's lives. And of course, in order to do that, I've got to be very intentional about who I serve, who I partner with. I do something kind of unique. I mean, there is an annual investment, and I've got no problem saying it. It's a $50,000 a year group. But what I do, if people who come in, if they're open to doing a mutually agreed upon revenue share with me, I let them come in at $25,000 for the year. Okay. And everybody in the group has agreed to that. And most of them are somewhere between 10 and 20%. In fact, most of all of them are somewhere between 10 and 20%. Yeah. But I let them know that here's the deal when it comes to this revenue share. Nobody compensates me out of some kind of sense of obligation. That is, I don't even want that. People compensate me because they appreciate the role that I hold in their lives. Mm-hmm. And I tell them, I said, whatever we agree to on the way in the door, If for whatever reason this does not working for you, then let me know. We'll revisit the conversation. We will make adjustments because this is about long-term
Right.
relationships far over and above any short-term profit.
Mhm.
And it's quite honestly, the conversation hardly ever revolves around money
Right.
because entrepreneurs in this second stage of their life, in their business, what have you, like I said, they're focused on purpose, they're focused on impact, they're focused on legacy, either one, two, or all three of
Yep.
those things. That's what inspires them. And when we create a bigger impact, and you do it with the right people and for the right people and for the right reasons, revenue is the byproduct of that. That's the natural byproduct of that. And so the revenue just comes. And I do know a lot of people who are connectors that they're more focused on the money piece of it rather than on the impact piece. And I always kind of, when they're friends of mine, I just kind of point this out. I say, you know what, when you focus on the impact and making an impact, the revenue is going to come. I promise.
Yeah.
The revenue will come. And so, and for me, I don't do any like broad market advertising because it is such a personal experience. People, when they find out about me, I will tell you the easiest way for us to kind of get to know each other. I host this podcast called Million Dollar Relationships.
Yes.
And that is such an amazing entry point because you, as a podcast guest, get to talk about the most valuable relationships in your life. And I get to know you a little bit and stuff through that process. And if it makes sense, I host these virtual roundtables on Zoom. I've done over 350 of them at this point.
Wow.
And I will tell you that, a small group of entrepreneurs, 3 or 4 maximum, they come into this thing. Nobody knows each other. 2.5 hours later, they're all like wanting to connect and follow up and refer each other and figure out how they can do business together. And it happens every time. And it's like magic happens. And I get to just facilitate all of that.
That is so cool. I love it.
If that sounds interesting to people and you're the kind of entrepreneur who is focused on impact and all that, I'm really easy to find. I'm on Facebook, Kevin the Connector on Facebook. Just shoot me a message. If you believe check out the podcast. If what you see resonates and you'd like to do an interview, get a hold of me, and I would love to interview you for the podcast and make time to get to know you a little bit, and we can just kind of open the door that way. So
I definitely those listening, take advantage of that opportunity. If it's a connection, if it is or not, just from listening. But Million Dollar Relationships podcast is definitely worth checking out. And 2 quick questions before we have to wrap up. One, though, is going back to, being all about relationships. And, we're in such a world of just social relationships, right? And we're communicating, but are we not? We're friends, we're following each other, but how do you maintain the real authentic connections, especially with people that you don't see that often? Are you consistently, are you texting people all the time? Are you making the phone calls? Is it through the podcast? Is it all of the above? But I know that's where, I struggle at times. We all know so many people and it's just, there's only so much time in the day. How do you do it?
Yeah. So here's the thing that I've discovered over the years. No matter who somebody is, no matter how successful they are, no matter how big their business grows, no matter how great things look from the outside looking in, there is not a person on the face of this earth that gets too much appreciation. And I learned this 12 years ago. And ever since learning that, I have made it a daily practice to just show appreciation for people. And I'll give everybody a challenge because we've all got cell phones with plenty of contacts in those cell phones. And it doesn't matter whether this is personal friends, whether it's business associates, whether it's family members, it does not matter. What I want to challenge you to do, choose 10 people. It can be whoever you want it to be. And between now and the next 24 hours, send out 10 messages to people. shoot them a message and just let them know one thing that you genuinely appreciate about them. And don't ask for anything in return. Don't even ask for a response in return. Just send out some love. And do that with 10 people minimum in the next 24 hours, and you watch what happens.
Yes.
Because not only are you going to have an amazing experience, but so are they. And what it'll cause you to realize is that you were the catalyst for that. And that you can do more of that whenever you want. And so realizing that 12 years ago, when a friend of mine gave me that challenge, I did it. And I'm like, oh yeah, I want more of this.
Yeah.
And so I've been doing it every day. And what that does, it, like, because you brought up a lot of things, you brought, do you call them? Do you text them? Do you Facebook message them? And like a lot of people feel like, I need to do this, or I should do this, or I should do more of this. When you have this experience, it takes away all the needs and the shoulds.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I want to do more of this. And you don't have to question, well, who do I do it with, or when do I do it? You just know.
You just know.
Just love,
yeah. Oh, that is so awesome. I love that advice. And it's mining for gold is, and Zig used to have something called these little things called I like because before cell phones and all that, but little notes, I like Kevin because he authentically approaches people, with true connection, or I like this person because you smiled at me today. It could be so simple, but there is not a person on the planet that doesn't want to be seen, heard, appreciated, and loved. So the more we give of that, the more we get in return. So well, we'll wrap with my last question. And so the show is called The Power of Authority, and I, being a book publisher, it is a play on words. You can't spell authority without author. However, you don't have to write a book to build or make an impact on other people's lives. So how do you see today, what are some of the best ways that entrepreneurs and people listening could leverage their own authority and grow their business just like you're doing?
Well, so what's interesting? Until you asked me this, Michelle, I never looked at myself as an authority that much. I mean, I have become very adept at creating authentic relationships over the years.
Then you're the authority.
So the advice that I would have is just show up and be you. Because we get all this stuff and all this chatter and all this stuff going on in our minds of like, I should do, I want to do, but, it's like when we can just be us and truly care about other people, we create so much authority for ourselves just by doing that stuff.
And authority, in my definition, isn't necessarily bigger, better, different. It's the ability for people to want to listen to what you have to say. And so when you have that authority or that impact on someone's life and you use it for good, it's a beautiful thing to have authority and share that. So I could talk to you for hours, but I know we've got to wrap this up. So Kevin, thank you so much for sharing your time, the suggestions. I love the daily appreciation challenge. I'm going to be doing that. I know Jeremy does that now that you say that, and so many other people. And checking out, everyone listening, check out the $1 Million Relationships podcast. Definitely inquire if you think you could be a potential good guest. And any last parting words you want for the audience, Kevin?
Like I said, take that active appreciation challenge, do that. And when you reach out to me on Facebook, tell me about your experience with that. I would love to hear about that. So
awesome. Well, thank you so much. And that is it for the show today. Go out, take this information. Relationships are key, not just for business, but for all things in life. And the more people we serve, the more that comes back to us. It is the golden rule, but it's not for the intention of ourselves. It's for the intention of others. But who can you go out and serve today? We'll see you next time. Thanks so much for listening to the Power of Authority Spotlight. If you are a successful founder, entrepreneur, business owner, or leader that's getting results and making a difference, and you'd like to be on this program, please visit performancepublishinggroup.com/podcast to apply. That's performancepublishinggroup.com/podcast. Also, if you got something out of this interview, please share this episode. Just do a quick screenshot with your phone and text it to a friend or post it on the socials. If you know someone that would be a great guest, tag them on social media to let them know about the show and include the hashtag #ThePowerOfAuthoritySpotlight. I love seeing your posts and guest suggestions. We are regularly putting out new episodes and content, so make sure you don't miss any episodes by subscribing. Your thumbs up, ratings, and reviews go a long way to help promote the show and mean a lot to me and my team. Want to know more? Go to our websites, performancepublishinggroup.com or michelleprince.com, and follow me on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.